Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Talk Tuesday, May 2nd. We are so happy you can join us. We have an exciting presentation ahead of us. So let's get started. So welcome to today's agenda. We want to welcome you from CERC. I'm Christine Kilwind. I'm here with my colleague, Anne-Marie Cordisco, and Steve Profit will be joining us. We are also here with our CSDEM partners, Kari Sullivan-Custer and Jay Brown.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Jay, good to see you. And we're going to work a little bit on talking about alignment and integration efforts with teams and data. We're so happy that Amanda Pickett from CSDE Climate and Culture can join us, along with Cheryl Gustafson, was Safe School Climate and Equity Coordinator for East Windsor Public Schools. So we have an exciting content ahead and conversation ahead of us. I'll wrap things up with just some upcoming attendance and engagement meetings. So kind of let's get started. So what's new at CSDE? Well, we have our Superintendent's Digest. And again, if any of these topics interest you at all, we have the QR code on the bottom of the screen along with the link. But just to review some of these, there's some applications kind of going out, as you can see in the list. So there's this dual credit expansion grant program that has an application ready. There's a Get Outside and Play for Children's Mental Health Day. There's an action required, like a new content list for diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders within EdSite itself. We have the 2024 Connecticut Teacher of the Year application, along with the 2024 Connecticut Anne-Marie Murphy Parent Educator of the Year application. Also, there's an exciting announcement that Commissioner Russell Tucker has appointed Cynthia Son Maiono as Deputy Commissioner of Educational Supports and Wellness. And if you want to learn more about that, just click on the link there. Okay. Just a quick reminder that our next Talk Tuesday will be May 16th, and that will be the last Talk Tuesday just for this school year. We will not have a Talk Tuesday in June. However, we are coming out with the summer series, so please stay tuned for that. We're refining details as we speak. We have some exciting topics, and really we think topics that will help you get going on your school year and to start to make implementation steps and setting off on the right foot. So we're going to look forward to announcing that very shortly. And I will turn it now over to Kari Sullivan-Custer.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Talk Tuesday. It's exciting to be here. Hooray for May, right? We're super excited, even though it's rainy out. I know, I'm glad it's May. I wanted to just start with the data as we usually do. And the March data recently came out just last week from the Performance Office. And we're so grateful to have this monthly data. It's available to schools on the EdSite. Monthly attendance reports. There's a link here supporting student participation, and there's a QR code to go right there. And when you get there, I need to update these, but when you get there, you'll find a list of Excel documents where you can download your latest monthly attendance report. And so right now the March reports are up there. We just released this month for the first time chronic absence by school. We had daily attendance rates by school previously, but the Performance Office has now uploaded chronic absence rates by school for a monthly report. And I'm really pleased to show that, and this compares the last 3 school years, 2019-20, 2021, and 2022. The last school year is the orange. We are at 23.7, and then the blue is where we were in March, and that's year-to-date data. So it's accumulative. It's not just March's data, it's cumulative. And so we are down in all of our categories. And in fact, all of our categories, with the exception of students without high needs, they're still up a little bit, but not nearly as high as some of our other student groups. If you go to the next slide, I'm happy to show that we are doing better than we were. Last month, we were at 24.2, and every one of those subgroups that we looked at has come down since last month. There was an opportunity to resubmit previous month data if districts have been doing some work to make sure they have accurate data. They had that opportunity last month, but we are down to 22% compared to 24.4 last year. And I show you this just as a demonstration of how you could be looking at your data also in your district by your student groups over time, but by month. If you don't have the monthly data from previous month, I have it and I can get that to you. So if you want to do a graph like this to see where you are compared to last year, I'd be happy to help you. Next slide, please. So we have started our LEAP 101 trainings. We had one last week with about 60 people. We're training districts that are interested in the LEAP approach for people doing home visits. Those could be teachers or family liaisons. It could be anyone in the school who has the personality and the interest in doing home visits. We don't force people to do home visits. And so we have training coming up May 31st and June 5th, and I'll be providing more information about that. But you can contact Francisco Verdes. His email's right there. If your district is interested in LEAP 101 training for your districts, it's a 2-hour training. It's fantastic. It's very relational, positive, relational-based training. And so that's there for you. And that's good. Those are great trainings to get people prepared for home visits over the summer, right? So that's a great time to visit transition grades, home visits for all kindergartners. And when I say home visits, I also mean making sure your home visitors have sort of the bullet points you want them to make, that they're not just going out and making their own points up, and that you're getting the consistent messaging across the districts. Home visits for 9th graders who are chronically absent in 8th grade can be really impactful. So you may want to think about participating in the LEAP 101 training to prepare your folks to do what research has proven to be impactful home visits. They have reduced chronic absence. And so that's available for you. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it for me. That was short. There's one thing I wanted to include for you guys. I didn't have a chance to make a slide, but if you're not thinking about it, please think about those students who need physicals and immunizations on record to start school next year. Starting early, setting up those clinics and places where families can access them, reminding families early. That's all work that can be started now. We have a resource for that, and I'll have Christine send that out with a reminder. So please have that top of mind so that you have good attendance in the fall. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Amanda Pickett, who is my colleague at CSDE, and she's going to be our presenter today with East Windsor. Go ahead, Amanda.
Perfect. Had to find my unmute button. Thank you, Kari. Just a couple of things I want to know. I really appreciate how you always keep data front and center in these conversations. That's going to be part of our dialogue today. And I think that's always a great reminder. I was part of another conversation around our SEL efforts with a colleague, and somebody from the performance office was talking about EdSite Secure. And just wanted to put that out there again for folks in districts. If you're not aware of that resource or don't have access and want to find out more about how you can access student level data that's secure, that's not publicly available. But there's some great resources there, and I encourage folks to really look into EdSite, the public forward-facing EdSite, but also to think about how your district is using EdSite Secure in your database decision-making. So first, I just want to say thank you again to Kari for always being a partner and collaborator in work at the State Department. It can be really easy to get into your lane of efforts and work, but I always find that Kari is a partner and understands how climate and culture and attendance are integrated, much like many of my other colleagues. I see Jay's smiling face as well. So thinking about how special ed, all of these things integrate. So I really welcome this opportunity to partner internally with my colleagues and with all of you. I'm the consultant at the State Department of Ed that really looks at school climate and culture. I'm also the bullying contact for the state. Today, I'm really hoping just to share some lessons learned about best practices for aligning and integrating your efforts. Looking at climate and culture, I use a very wide lens for how I conceptualize and how we conceptualize climate and culture, and attendance is a data point in that work that is really important. So for me, I think more than ever, I'm looking at a lot of faces in this room. We have to be finding ways to lighten the load on our staff to be more effective and efficient in our work. So I'm really excited to be joined by Cheryl, Madame, Mrs. G, Mrs. Gustafson from East Windsor. She is the Safe School Climate and Equity Coordinator for the district. We have been doing some work together, assessing their Tier 1 climate and culture work and looking at the systems and structures for support in this area. I'm learning so much from her and really thankful that she's able to join us. But before we hear from Cheryl, I'm going to go over a couple of kind of intro kind of content and some resources to help frame the conversation. So again, our time is really thinking about how we can work smarter, not harder, how we can focus on these effective and efficient systems. And my hope is that this is really, I know it's Talk Tuesday, but engaging. My hope is that you all jump in the chat, raise your hand, share if there's something that you would like to add to the conversation. Both Cheryl and I will say we learn more when we learn from each other. So please don't hesitate to chime in on the conversation. I want to, before jumping into our content, also ground this work in good system change efforts. This is a tool from the National Implementation Research Network that I know has been shared before, at least by me, but shared by multiple other people in other venues as well. I think it's really important that we think about how we are intentionally selecting strategies to help us do the work that we're doing in our districts. So the Hexagon tool can be used to better understand how we use new or existing programs or practices fit into our existing work and context, helps teams really understand the needs of your community, how this fits and aligns, what your capacity is, and then you use the green areas to really assess what would be the best solutions for your team. I will drop in the chat in a moment a direct link, but it's also hyperlinked on the slides. And so much of my work with districts is grounded in good tier 1 efforts. So when we think about alignment and integration, and we think about all of the work that you're doing around attendance, really seeing that it takes a comprehensive and robust approach to think about how we're supporting attendance, sense of belonging, relationships in a tier 1 way. So here's a list. I would not say that this is an exhaustive list of some tier 1 considerations for your teams to think about how you're addressing these things systemically, universally for all students. Who are responsible for these types of efforts? Do you have a team who addresses these? Who's that team? Do you have a champion, somebody at your district level, at your school level, who's really the person leading this work? Is there an intentional plan with carefully selected strategies to address these tier 1 considerations? So for example, I'm just going to pull the first one there around relationship and community building. I'll walk into a school and they'll say, oh yeah, we have great relationships here. And I say, oh, what are you doing to intentionally build relationships in your school? And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't get a direct answer back. Other schools might share with me, oh, we have all of our staff are in the hallway greeting students during transition time, during arrival and dismissal. So there's a physical presence, and we're really working hard during those transition times for staff to be present and to interacting with students. Cheryl, I see you came off mute. I don't know, is there any tier 1 relationship building practice East Windsor is using that you might want to share?
Well, your comments made me think of when, like you said, when you go into a school, the teachers are in the hallway greeting students, and we have a great climate and culture. But my question is always, but how do you know? Like, where's the data for that? You know that there is, more anecdotal things that you can see, but as a data collector myself, I like to have things that are concrete. Are you surveying families? Are you surveying students? Are you surveying the teachers about relationships? So just my question is, it's great that the perception is that there's good relationships, but I like to see the data. So later I'm going to talk about how you can collect some data, but
perfect. No, that's awesome. And thank you for bringing that in this space. And I think the other piece that you highlight with that is that there's an intentional practice that you're implementing. So many schools, staff are in halls, but that might not be, a really outlined intentional practice that we're trying to institute to make a change. So if you're using something like school climate data, survey data to say, hey, do students feel engaged or have relationships with adults? And then you say, okay, we're going to employ this strategy very purposefully to try to work on building relationships, then we can kind of see the impact of that. Kari, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and this may be a little granular and it too into the detail, but it's something I was looking at just this morning as I was helping a district analyze their data, is we now collect for gender, we collect non-binary. gender. And so you have access to that chronic absence rate now. And that's a student population that might need special tier 1 considerations, or to look at the data for those students to make sure they're feeling welcome and part of the community and that their needs are being met too. It's the first year we've collected that data, I believe. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Perfect. Thank you, Kari. That's new learning for me too. So thank you. So this is, I put this out there for you all to possibly go back to with your school teams and think about, what are you doing in these areas? Who's charged with leading this type of work? And how have you selected those strategies to support these pieces? And then in a moment, we're going to talk about the data that you use to help inform those decisions. And I just want to point, Kari, to the piece that you made, the importance of not just collecting data, but then disaggregating data to be able to look at who's being impacted and really dig into those root causes of the potential whys. So really important pieces to put in there. So one thing that we know is that teams or committees are very popular in schools and districts. And I'm going to ask all of you in here to give me a thumbs up if you are on a committee at your school. I see so many thumbs. I was expecting those thumbs. It was just to make sure you all were awake with me. Perfect. So we know that many schools and districts get the work done through teams and committees. All of you here, I think, gave me a thumb up. If you wouldn't mind writing in the chat some of those teams or committees that you are on. What are those teams? What are those committees? You can feel free to just share the names of them in the chat, because I think it would be helpful to kind of look at those. But what we know about teams is that there needs to be some really good concrete features of how our teams operate. And so I know Kari and Attendance Work has offered some great guidance around attendance teams and how those teams are set up, how those teams run. On this slide, I've included some of the guidance from Attendance Works, along with some other guidance that I've gotten through other training. But for any of your team, ensuring that your team has a defined purpose, ensuring that there are intentional members on your team that represent multiple perspectives, so it's not always the same usual players. I'm going to stress the importance of family and student voice on teams, especially when we're talking about tier 1 universal practices. That I would say is a must critical feature. That there should be some shared agreements and norms for how the teams function. That should also be aligned with how your school defines behavioral expectations. Folks on the team should have defined roles and responsibilities. I've listed a few here. The reason why I believe this is a really important one is for many districts, especially if you're in a smaller school or district, and sometimes not even a small school or district, as I see the chat box lighting up here, people serve on lots of teams. It's really important to know why you're on that team. Why were you selected to be on that team? What role are you serving? What perspective are you bringing to that team? And what is the expectation? So I'm going to give you a non-example because I think sometimes non-examples are helpful to illustrate the point. I was working with a district and they listed out all their teams. And then there was lots of common people on all of the teams. And so I asked, how do these teams work together? And the answer was like, oh, Jay sits on all the teams. So he communicates the work of all of the teams to all of the other teams. And I said, oh, does Jay realize that that's a job of his to wear that hat of knowing what all of the teams are doing and how this work is coming together and aligning. And I think that was kind of an unspoken expectation that people just came to meetings and were to align and share the work. I think we need to work harder on being more explicit around that alignment and integration and the roles of the folks on our teams. Other important pieces.
Could I jump in on that? I
Yes,
can tell
please.
you a non-example as well. In my everything is always a work in progress. And in my former life, I served on lots of committees and teams, and I tended to take on all the roles. I would be the facilitator, I'd be the note taker, I would be the data analyst, and the teams in my past life tended to lean on me to have all the answers. And I found that I did not do, we all have talents that we bring to the table on these teams. And by assigning roles and responsibilities that are geared towards people's talents, you do better work. So that was a non-example, but I did it, and I've learned from it. So if you find yourself in that position, don't be afraid to, seek out the people on your committee who are good with data, or who are good at taking solid notes, and actually, as an administrator, I'd been in some MTSS training where they said, as a building administrator, you actually shouldn't be the facilitator, because there are times when you have to deal with a crisis or handle something outside of the meeting, and you might need to step away. So I learned to offload even like that facilitator role to someone who is skilled in keeping the business of our committees moving.
Thank you, Cheryl, so much for adding that. And I think that speaks strongly to the kind of last few pieces there. One is kind of operating procedures for your teams. I've worked with many schools that regardless of what team you were on or committee you were on, how teams operated were very similar. They had similar agendas, they had similar meeting templates, they used data kind of in similar ways. So there was routines in how teams functioned, which I think can be really helpful. Also thinking about how we have shared decision-making. I think, Cheryl, you illustrated that it's important to have a leader involved in work, but how do we also share the ownership of decision-making and empower others on our team to be part of that decision-making process? And then really importantly, ensuring that our teams have action plans that are shared with others so we can find those areas of alignment and integration. So again, teams are important because they are a collaborative approach to that shared decision-making and the ownership of the work. I don't know how many of you possibly in schools or districts that you're supporting around attendance, sometimes it can feel like you're an army of one and you own the effort, and that can feel really isolating and also really heavy. So teams help really share this group ownership and define how others also help solve the problem. And again, my work for the day is really around intentionality. So teams are only successful if they have the systems and structures that support them. So things that you see listed here, but that also means meeting time, ability to work on their action plans. We need to set up really systems and structures that support teams. So thank you for dropping in the chat all of those teams that you are on. I'm going to reference those in a minute. I just want to quickly share with you all a resource that I believe I have shared before around a reflection that you all can do to assess the membership of your school teams. So this could be an easy takeaway for all of you. You can download this resource. I'll drop the hyperlink in the chat in a moment. But this really ensures that your team thinks about who's on your team, why are they on the team, what skill or perspective do they bring, and this resource really ensures that you're centering your decision-making on those most impacted. So I can't help but take this moment to continue to stress the highlight and the importance of families and students on school decision-making teams. This is how we can form community. This is how culture and climate is impacted. So if we include their voices as part of our solutions, it helps us really think deeper about the work that we're doing. So that's just a resource I will share with you. Another potential resource or activity your team or district might want to engage in. I have referenced that I was working with a district outlining all of their teams to help them start looking at alignment and integration of their efforts. So this was one thing that we started doing. So you can adapt this, but across the top, you'll see you list your committees or teams and the initiatives that they support. The next column, you list the purpose or the goal of those committees. What do you expect them? What are they trying to achieve? Who are the potential members and roles of those members? How often do they meet? And what data do they use to look at outcomes and also to monitor their fidelity of implementation? So I gave a little example of a potential school climate committee, but this district really outlined all of those committees. And I'm looking at the chat box here real quick to see if there is any, hang on, where did my toolbar go? There it is. To see if there's any teams here, district attendance team, climate teams, a community committee, an MTSS team, an equity team, attendance, climate, and engagement. Oh, I like the name of that one. Achievement, leadership teams, security teams. So all of those teams really outlining who they are, why we have them, who's on them, And then the next layer is saying, how do these teams communicate with one another? So I'm going to give you an example here. I was working with a school climate team, and through their work, they were discussing how they needed to support some staff development around understanding behavior and adult responses to behavior. And I said, oh, well, who's on your PDAC committee? How do you communicate with your PDAC committee, your professional development committee, that you need some staff professional learning time? And there was this, oh gosh, I'm not sure if the PDAC committee knows what our action steps are and what we're trying to plan. So this is the system piece here. It's nice to have teams to help us get our work done, but we also need to think about how the teams are informing each other to work on this aligned and integrated approach. So that is a takeaway there. So now I'm going to be passing it over to Cheryl. She has some amazing information to share with you about the data that they're using in East Windsor. So with this slide, it's really kind of my nice warm handoff to talk about how we use data in our teams to drive decision making. So again, in the chat, you all can feel free to use what type of data do your teams use to help make decisions. Cheryl's going to talk a little bit about behavioral data collection, along with some other data that her teams are using to help make decisions around their climate and culture work. But you'll see here listed on this slide, thinking about, we ask teachers and staff to collect a lot of data. And if we want folks to collect that data, collect it with fidelity, we need to be clear on how are we using that data in decision making. And the last kind of bullet here, how are we sharing that data with our staff, with our students, with our families and our community partners, so they understand the importance of this work and our action steps around doing this. So these are just some considerations for you all to think about. Your teams, what data you're using, how are you progress monitoring, how are you looking at the fidelity of that implementation, and how are you sharing data. But with this, I'm going to pass the baton, oops, sorry, one slide too many, to Cheryl. Again, thank you, Cheryl, so much. She's here to really honestly share her work that she is embarking on in East Windsor. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and give a little snippet of the work that she's engaging on and share some resources. So please welcome Cheryl from East Windsor.
Well,
thank you
for inviting me today. I would like to just take a moment to introduce myself. I am new in East Windsor. I only just joined the East Windsor team this past fall as Safe School Climate and Equity Coordinator. I have experience as a classroom teacher and as a building administrator. And so a lot of the work that I have been doing as a Safe School Climate Coordinator has really been informed by the work that I've taken what I've learned as an assistant principal and applied it to the work that I'm doing as a Safe School Climate Coordinator. So I am going to share with you today as a tool that I have developed. I use Google Forms to really collect data and to be able to share it with teams and to make decisions based on that data. So really, I'm going to start off with, and I've got to figure out how to share my screen with you folks. I'm going to show you a tool that I use. Over the years, I have used, hold on. Over the years, I have used, are you able to see my discipline referral form? Okay, good. Over the years, I have had several iterations of this referral form, and I'm going to start with behavioral forms because as a Safe School Climate Coordinator, really a lot of my focus is on SEL and looking at data district-wide to be able to inform how we approach Tier 1 practices in the classroom to support behavior and teacher practice. So being new to this role, I started with the behavior form, the discipline referral form, because I feel like it's an opportunity to collect data from the classroom on the ground, what's happening in classrooms. In my past life, I took this digital form and I found that in collaboration with the instructional coach in East Windsor, that we could really clean up the form that I used to use to preserve some of the integrity of the data that we're collecting. In my past life, again, Google Forms is a great way to collect data. It's an easy interface for staff to use. It's also, it feeds into a spreadsheet. And there are also other tools that we can use with Google Forms to create documents that get emailed to different stakeholders in the process. So with this form, the first thing that I've refined with it is that it's really important that we have data integrity, meaning that I found in my past that sometimes if there's misspellings, if staff names or student names, that the data, when we start to collect, to put it together and really aggregate and disaggregate what we're doing, we really need to have the names spelled correctly. So when we're creating graphs, that they're easy to follow. So this is just a sample referral form that I created. This is fake. These are not real names. As you can see, there are not too many Dumbledore teachers. There's one that we know of. So I created this form, and I'm going to run through how it works with you. And I have my teacher list. Again, it lends itself, the drop-down menus lend themselves to really clean data, that they're spelling the same, that the same person is getting attributed for this referral. So we can see which classrooms may need more support. The grade level. So what I have done here is I've done a drop down for the grade level. And by selecting grade 9, once I hit that button, it's actually going to lead me to a grade 9 list of students. Again, so that I have fidelity of information. I have the names pre-populated, so I can collect, I can write a referral for the student who needs support. And we're able to visualize that data properly when it comes time to generate graphs and such. So I'm going through this form. We're going to do a referral for today at 10 o'clock. And I have intentionally chosen to include some information here to inform my administrative team and also the classroom teachers on where and when difficulties are occurring. So for example, we decided to not only put the time of day, but the class or period where the student might be having some difficulty, because that tells us if it's a certain period, it might be that the student is having trouble in just their science class, but they're fine for the rest of the day. So we can really drill down on that information and find out, is it the time of day? Is it the subject matter? Is it the people in the room? Is there a climate situation in the room that we need to address? So we have a couple of different data points. So we were very intentional about putting both of those data points on this form. The location, this tells us where we may need to have a presence, or again, where there might be concerns like climate related concerns. If we're seeing that there are issues happening in the hallway, it might be that we need to have a greater staff presence. And like Amanda said, in response to these referrals, we see that the hallway might be an area where there's a lot of stuff happening. When we put our staff out into the hallway to be a greater presence, they need to know the why of why they're out there. Why are they out there? What are they looking for? And also to be proactive with creating a positive school climate, saying hello to students, looking them in the eye, just getting the barometer on how students are doing. Being in the hallway is very important. So this is just, again, just a sample. So we're going to say that this student was maybe cutting class. Again, kind of speaks to attendance here because that's a focus of this group. So the students cutting class, they were in the hallway. I worked with Amanda on this, on really refining the form. As we scroll down, we have reason for referral 1, reason for referral 2, reason for referral 3, because as we know that sometimes things compound. We might have, the class cut, but we might have a touch of insubordination with that, or other things that might be happening. So it lets us drill down on what's happening. In this case, we just have a class cut. I worked with Amanda on this description of incident because in the past I just had description of incident and I was getting all kinds of different information that may or may not have been pertinent to the situation. So we provided some specific scripting to help the teachers write a referral that was giving us more data to respond to the situation. What was the observable behavior? What was the staff response? What was the student's response to the intervention? And a little reminder to stick to the facts, please leave opinions out, because occasionally opinions slip in there. We just want to know what the observable data was, how the student responded, how the teacher responded. Another piece of data that we collected was what happened just prior to the incident, if it's known. So we can really drill down on the antecedent that was leading to the behavior with that student, or if there's a situation in the whole class. So the great thing about collecting data using this kind of form is that we are able to identify student patterns, classroom patterns, and school patterns. And for the purposes of who looks at this form, I'm gonna just pop in here. So we're gonna say that what happened just prior to the incident was unstructured time. We may or may not know what that is, what the antecedent was, but in this case, we're going to say unstructured time. And then what responses that we have tried for this behavioral infraction. We may be reteaching classroom expectations, like we expect you to be in class. We might actually have a restorative conference with that student. And then we do ask our teachers to contact the family. And so we're going to put that we contacted them today. And I've actually added a bit to this particular question, outcome of parent contact, because oftentimes we might have people leave a voicemail or exchange or send an email, but we don't have any guarantee that there was necessarily any dialogue with the family. So if there was not dialogue, or if there was dialogue, we do ask that the teacher indicate some details of that conversation. So we might, I'm just going to write text here, but we might include that, say the person left a voicemail and they were not able to exchange contact with the family. We would say, as a teacher, if I'm writing this person up, I'm not able to reach the family. I attempted to call the family and email, did not hear back by the end of the day. So that way I know from the receiving and the administrative end that attempts were made to reach out to the family. So finally, I'm going to submit this form. It allows me to submit another response if I want to. And I'm just going to take you all out to, I'm sure you all are familiar with Google Forms, but I have a couple of little tools that have been useful to me in using Google Forms that are not completely used by everyone.
Can I have you pause for one moment? I see a few comments in the chat, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to illustrate. So those of you who are mentioning Swiss, Amanda's a Swiss girl, a PBIS trainer, school-wide information system. Very similar fields are on in the Swiss platform. Swiss is a data platform, pretty cost effective for a school, and it's school owned. What Cheryl is demonstrating is like a homegrown Google form that really emulates like a Swiss-like data system. The other piece that I think is important to kind of highlight for the conversation is the intentionality, Cheryl, of how you've selected the fields to not only be helpful when you need to maybe share this information in a tiered or SRBI or MTSS way as far as problem solving for students, but also how your team can use this information to problem solve for tier 1 classroom level or whole school level. And I loved your field of like what was happening before this incident. So I'm thinking if you're seeing a lot of referrals with unstructured time is when we're getting a lot of referrals around behavior, that cues our team to think about adult behavior. What are we doing? How have we taught unstructured time? What are we doing during unstructured time? What do we need to do? That's a school-wide intervention. So I really appreciate you sharing how this information could be used at the multiple levels, student, class, and school-wide, and how you were really intentional about designing the form. My wonder for you, Cheryl, and I'm just thinking about some of the pieces you talked and can maybe share with the team, is what was the upfront effort in building the form to make sure you had the student list, and how are you ensuring, you mentioned data integrity, that is updated and accurate?
So the upfront effort to build the form. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. So I'm going to start up at the beginning of my using one of these Google Forms. In my last district, I used a Google form to collect referral data. We did also use Swiss. So basically, the teachers had this Google form. We actually, in my old district, had a minor form and a major form. So we were able to classify what things were handled on the classroom level and what things were handled on the administrative side of things. I have to say, looking back, because I'm the first one to admit that this is all a work in progress. We are all a work in progress, and I'm learning as I go. In my last experience with the level 1, the tier 1 response form, the minor form, if you will, and the major form, is that I found that having them on 2 separate forms, sometimes the minor form tended to get neglected, like it didn't get the attention that the major form got. So I have ideas on how I could, we actually use one form for all of ours. So we're able to see what's happening. In East Windsor, we don't use Swiss. In my old district, we did use Swiss. So basically the form would come in. It actually, I'll show you all this. When this Google form is submitted, it actually populates a Google Doc. I have an extension called Autocrat that I use with Google Sheets that you're able to create a Google form and you create a template in Google Docs, which was basically my referral form. So there's a paper copy of, the student's name, the date, what happened, the teacher's response, and it populates into a beautiful form that actually automatically emails the administrative team so that they're able to take a look at it. And because it creates a Google form, it actually automatically creates a file. So you can, with this extension called Autocrat, you can actually direct that Google Doc to go immediately into a behavior tracking form file. So it automatically populates a file and it alphabetizes itself and everything. So it creates actually a document that somebody could look at without sifting through a spreadsheet. So I'll
Cheryl, I'm going to ask you a question live, and it's okay if your answer is no. I see lots of folks taking notes and seeming very interested. Is there any way you could share your sample referral form with folks so that way they can have the example one that you've shared? Awesome.
Absolutely. And so I just want to hop back up here on my sample referral form and show you the back end of you folks are, I'm guessing, likely living through COVID, familiar with Google Forms, but this is the data. I love graphs. So this is the data that comes out of this so that you can see it's pretty even spread amongst teachers who are referring. But if I were to see, say, maybe 50% of the referrals were coming from one teacher, and on our teams in this particular district, we might look at that data and say 50% of the referrals or 40% of the referrals are coming from this teacher. Why is that? Oh, this teacher has lunch duty. So there's a lot of behaviors that happen in the cafeteria. And why is that? Because there's a lot of unstructured time in there. There's not as much staff presence. So we do ask those questions in our leadership team, in our SEL teams. We look at those particular pieces of data. So we could also drill down by grade, which grade is getting written up the most. In this particular sample referral form, it looks like our 9th graders are the winners. And then we can drill down to the particular individual student. We can say, oh, this is pretty much evenly split, that these kids have all been written up one time. And we roll through this. And again, having the data, which you asked about, be consistent. The drop-down menus are key. It really changed my life as far as building a referral form. So in my previous district, I had the teachers type in the names. So we had lots of errors there. We had first name first, last name first. We had misspelling. So the data was not really that great because we didn't have any continuity. So to build this, so your question about the back end, the upfront effort, the major heavy lifting on building one of these Google Forms is going to get the lists of students from PowerSchool or Rediker or whatever system that you have. Your data person can download your grade level lists, and you basically have to do what they call concatenation, which is, I just Googled how to do it. That's how I figured out how to do it. You Google it, so it merges the fields together and puts a comma between them. And then you just copy and paste it and put it into a list. It's a bit of a time consuming thing when you're learning how to do it. But I figured it out. Google is magic. So I learned how to do it by using Google. And it really did preserve the integrity of my data here. So I can figure out what time things are happening. In our MTSS committee, we're developing an MTSS framework in the district, and we use this type of referral data among other forms of data. We do look at attendance data, we do look at grade level data, and we've been able to identify, oh, this time of the day, the students are having a little bit more difficulty than others. Or we're seeing that there's more class cuts happening during maybe a study hall. This is just, this is not necessarily accurate data, but I'm just throwing an example out there. So we can be responsive in that way. And again, the class periods, this has been important data for us as a SEL committee, a Safe School Climate Committee, to think problem solve on. We're seeing a lot of our referral data happening after lunch. So what are some things that we could put in place to help kids come back together after lunch? And to settle their minds to get ready to learn again after lunch. So we've had those conversations about, we're seeing an uptick at a specific time of day, mid-morning. What's going on with that? Are the kids hungry? Are they tired? Do they just need a little bit longer of a break? So these are questions that we can ask as an MTSS team or as an SEL team to really be responsive to what we're seeing in this particular data form. This is just one of many types of data that you can collect on one of these forms. Other data that can inform, say, an MTSS team is like visits to support services. You can build a Google form, and in my previous district, as a response to COVID, we actually built a support services form so that we could track where kids were if they were marked absent. So the kid is absent from second period. Where are they? We look at our Google form for support services, and we might see they're with a school social worker right now. So we have some data that we can collect on trips to the support services, trips to the nurse. So that's another piece of data that can really support our SEL work, is where are these kids? So there's so many different ways that you can use these forms. I look back at our old forms. I was talking to Amanda before we started meeting today. I was looking back at some of our COVID time forms because I really latched onto this during the COVID distance learning time. And we had students in my last district who might have been getting intervention services, and we were fully remote for a while, but we wanted to make sure we were still engaging with those students. So we had the kids do a check-in for intervention every week. And I have a copy of this that I want to, thinking about being intentional about the questions that we're asking. I look back at this form now that I've been in East Windsor, and I've really fine-tuned how I'm asking questions, thanks to Amanda. So look at this old form. I can't show the data to you, but I can show you the questions. This form, I would change so many things about this form now. So this is checking in, is this kid checking in during when we were in lockdown to intervention? And so this is for a student to fill out. Did you respond to your emails from intervention today? Yes or no? Okay, well, if they didn't, there's chances are they might not have responded to this particular form. But did you complete your math work today? And then they ask, and it says yes or no. What questions do you have about math work? So my next question would be, knowing what I know now and having worked with these forms and asking the right questions, is I might say, did you complete your math work today? Why? Why didn't you complete your math work? As an interventionist, that tells me the student's having difficulty with it. They didn't have time. It was boring. I mean, what have you. There were things going on in the house, but that's a question that I would ask us. Okay, you didn't complete your math work. Why? And if they're saying that they need extra help with it, that tells me as the interventionist that I can support them with a math tutor, which we did during lockdown. So this was just a check-in that we had for our students to fill out. But you can glean a lot of information just from the students doing a check-in too. So they provide us with a lot of important data. So I just look at this form and it's pretty basic, but I would ask some more why questions if I were to redo that form. But I just wanted to share where we were and where we're going. Not that it was bad, it was a good effort at the time. We were all learning as we were going back during lockdown. So that's a step back in time. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place here, but there's lots of stuff that I really, appreciate about technology to collect data. So I'm going to head back to my sample referral form for just a second. So we have the sample referral form here, and I explained to you folks that there is the ability to have this particular form populate an email message that makes a nice Google Doc. So basically, what it creates is it populates this discipline referral form that has all of the fields that are with the quotation marks around them are the fields that are getting populated directly from that Google form. And what happens is when a teacher submits the Google form, it populates, creates a document, a new document that is based on this particular template that emails to whoever you need it to email it to. The writer of the document, it can get emailed to, the administration, and I've had it emailed to the administrative assistant who enters things in my last district into Swiss, or who's entering things into state reporting. So that way they have that, and there's a paper copy for the file. So as you can see, it's all the fields that I've included, the location, the reason for the referral, the description of the incident, any other people involved, what action was taken. These are the tiered responses. Have the parent been contacted? What are the previous interventions? Like, do you have a history of intervening on this particular behavioral issue with a student? And then any other information. And then finally, this is an editable document. So the administrator, whoever handles the situation, can actually take notes right on this form. So it gets emailed directly to the team. I do this particular program with my home visit form. So before I started here in East Windsor, they have a nice home visit summary form that they were handwriting out after they visited on a home visit. I created a Google form with that home visit form that basically populates a Google Doc. And that way I have a nice spreadsheet of how many home visits have we done? What have the purposes of these home visits been? Have they been relational? Have they been academic related? Have they been in response to attendance concerns? So we can keep track of that data. So I know I went on for a lot of information. So
One, I just love that about the home visitor log, and because we do that with the LEAP home visits, we collect that data, and you get very valuable information about what parents are saying about why they're missing school, or what are the issues that they're facing. You might find some trends around transportation, or trends around housing, or trends around a teacher or a classroom. And so bringing, not only understanding why you did the home visit, but what did you learn? That's valuable information in an aggregate. So I encourage anyone who's doing home visits to make sure you're collecting that in a way that it can be analyzed.
Kari, I know we're getting close to the end of time. Cheryl, do you mind if I can just share my screen real quick? You mentioned something that I wanted to share a resource with folks. So Cheryl, you mentioned back to your behavioral form, the minors, the majors, and those categories. A piece that I just want to put in this space, really, I think important around climate and culture work, is when we are talking about behavior, there is a component here of work that you need to do with your staff in calibrating how we talk about behavior and the language that we're using. So this is, more targeted negative behavior. We need to do the same with the positive behavior. But for me, this is a chance to also unpack our own system biases around how we categorize and name and document behavior. So this is a sheet that I was using with the school when they were working on building a form, like Cheryl has. They were determining what type of behavioral categories did they want to add in their drop-down menu. And I said, it's not just about a behavioral category. You need to have a definition of that behavioral category. And then you need to calibrate your staff on what you want them to document. So with this school, we talked about what's a reteach, developmentally appropriate. We don't need documentation on. what do we want as a classroom managed or minor or an office managed, and how we want it documented. This was eye-opening when the admin was doing this activity with their staff around how do they support the skills of their staff. When I'm the teacher who thinks that, you know, a kid saying a swear word under their breath is an office managed, where another teacher says, oh, that's a reteach. We have to have some conversations about that. This is also an opportunity to really look for those cultural you know, differences in how we describe and look at behavior, how we code behavior, and be more aware of our adults noticings. So thank you kind of for just thinking about more carefully how we're describing behavior. I'm going to stop sharing. I know we're at the end of time and Kari has some wrap up information. But again, thank you, Cheryl, for your honest sharing of the work that you're doing in East Windsor, for also highlighting it's a journey and it's a continuous process. There's always ways to refine and do better. And I encourage folks to reach out to Cheryl and see what she's doing. She's an amazing, helpful resource, and I'm sure she'd be willing to share more with you.
And I value learning from everyone else too. Like I said it before we started, I spent nearly 20 years in my previous district, and every time I have an opportunity to work with other people, I learn from everyone else. So everything I shared today was really a compilation of what I've learned from other people.
I think that's the magic of Talk Tuesday, right? Is that we can bring districts together and we can hear from each other. And there may be someone out there whose district is perfect and doing great or everything perfectly, but we're all addressing a big issue that's very complex. And so I appreciate Cheryl and Amanda, you're coming on and helping share these wonderful resources that you're using. It's fantastic. So here's Amanda and Cheryl's contact information. We've put the slides in the chat, and we will be sending those out to everyone with other resources that were mentioned today. And then the next slide, I'll turn over to Christine.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Cheryl. Fantastic information around data and teams and decision making. And we work to improve that. Our next Talk Tuesday and our last one, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be May 16th for the 2022-23 school year. Summer session series is coming. We can't wait to talk about that more. One thing to add about May 16th, we are looking, and this is our plan, is to have a conversation around supporting the transition with kindergartners and attendance and into school, and how can we support that more. So we do have some content on that. And hopefully a district to help support that, just to get you in the frame of reference of how can we start supporting the kindergartners that are transitioning into the next school year. And hopefully a theme for that is also going to be in our summer series. Keep in touch. So if you have any questions, anything that you need support with, here's our contact information here. And we are always available via email, phone if you need to, but we're here to support. And again, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
All right.